Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 87th episode of Book of Hours, playing as the artist for our first YouTube series without having beaten the game yet, although I'm certainly getting very close on my live broadcasts. And we've done a couple of things. So we have slept on... we followed... So I don't want to go into too much detail because I did sort of warn people ahead of time that I was going to unlock a mystery. But we followed up on a pretty exciting lead that I finally found in Deaths and Their Evasion. So we're following up on that. Really just, it's going to be a minute before we see the result. And then probably for the rest of the day, just because it's not really realistic for me to expect any more, like to be able to read the Lantern book and still be able to do anything with it. What I'm most likely going to do is just dump the core, the health, and maybe the whist, if there's enough time, into the sweet bones and just, see what I can get. We're going to give up the winning move. We'll give up, we'll give up most of these memories, but that's life, right? We've got enough to carry us through the day, and more importantly, with a Mazarine Fife, I'm actually going to be able to use Mr. Kill to, at minimum, make it to the Squawkful Logia. But I'll deal with that later. There are a couple of things that I might do differently depending on how the day goes. Their tisn can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. "99 winks, and I wake with a book cradled in my arms." So, this is a really interesting text. Now, I don't think we have any other versions of this, so the fact this was a little more exciting for me to find when I first found it, which was on the Twitch broadcast. Let me just make sure that I don't have another one of these kicking around somewhere. Yeah, it looks like this is the first one that I've got. But the Three and the Three, the St. Chiavi manuscript. This book describes the operations of the Chancel and the Calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. Of all extant versions, this one has best survived the interventions of the Calyptra. This book houses a Newman, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. So this is the first Newman that we've encountered. I'm gonna just put this in the library. So there's a Carapace Cross image on the side of this book. So I had a 3 and the 3 Vatican manuscript, and there's a really wonderful streamer on Twitch named Sweeps the Pillow Clean who does a lot of Book of Hours as well, and she has a copy of the 3 and the 3, which is not the Vatican manuscript, but she, so far as I can tell, doesn't even know about the existence of the St. Chiavi manuscript. Actually, didn't know about the Vatican one until I asked. But yeah, there's multiple versions of this book, and we've seen an indication of this before. So we've got Nin's Cage's, the Bruges pop-up book version, as opposed to the Avignon text. So there are cases of different versions of books present in Book of Hours, but the 3 and the 3 specifically because it deals with the it deals specifically with this very interesting room. And I mean, one of the reasons why I'm so obsessed with this is I remember when I first checked this out, I think I probably spent like 40 minutes trying to reason my way through and pretty much every single time I started thinking about this, I wound up just down a rabbit hole of like trying to remember little fragments of Secret Histories lore. So for whatever reason, this is just one particular idea that I find very compelling. So in any case, just being able to find not just a copy of the 3 and 3, which is closer to the original, but also, is one that houses a Newman, is, I don't know, it's exciting, it's interesting. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the Newman just because we're not going to be reading a level 18 moon text for a while. And we may even wind up getting another text that houses a Newman later in the... We may actually read a book that houses a Newman before this one. But this is definitely... These books are special, and they are ones worth noting. And there is a process of finding these in the house. And sometimes they're very straightforward to find, and sometimes you'll see little hints that, where they might be in the contents of certain books. But this is the first one that I figured I would open up, and that's largely because if I finally found a book that allowed me to say, oh, I get the part that I was missing. So there's also, the sharp-eyed amongst you will probably have noticed that it's not even really sharp-eyed. I've more or less explicitly said, I'm not going to do that yet, but there has been one specific case where there was another treasure of the house, but I believe, looking where I'm at right now, I believe I can access one more secret of the house right now, but there's definitely more. All right, as they used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Okay. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. So I'm not too fussed about doing this. Actually, I've noticed just looking at the time, this is not going to work. So let's not waste the day. Let's pick up a blue crown. I can't remember if there's anything for me to pick up in winter. Yeah, we'll go for Lenten Rose. The petals of the Lenten Rose. Where I'm going to put it, I have no idea. So what this enables, if I want, I can hire a fisherman, but we already have access to Mr. Kill. So what I'm going to do tomorrow, now that we have the Mazarine Fife, we can bring Mr. Kill up to 4, and our easiest target would be the Squawkphologia. So, if I bring in the Storm alone... there 'tis and be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Let's go... I want to preserve something for sleep. So I might as well make it the Stolen Secret. That'll probably help with the Edict's Liminal. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. But yeah, so with Mr. Kill and the Mazarine Fife alone, that will bring him up to 4. From that, if I want, that I could bring in a Storm. So that brings him up to 8. And then if we need the 9th for the Squawkphologia, that's really just a question of adding the Foss then. Or there's any number of combinations of things that I can try, but that's a pretty straightforward way for me to combine some easy to restore. Oh, you know what? I should have taken the time, if I was doing that with my heart and my core, I could have fed Pleading Terrence. Or Tuppence. Cluck, cluck. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Oh, shame on me. So, a heart and a core down for all that. Oh well. Let's take the whist, talk with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. And I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I think probably I'm going to want to focus my attention on edicts, using the edict's liminal here. And let's actually take a minute to think. My inclination is definitely to push the skills that I have higher. But what I'm also interested in here is I'd like to make sure that I'm getting... So when I say pushing skills higher, I don't see a lot of value in promoting a moth skill, because that I'm already at 10 moth. Now, the fact of the matter is I'm also only at 9 knock. I'm also at 9 knock, so really the argument kind of goes both ways. But the idea here is if I find something that's primarily knock, so for instance door and wall, that means in theory I'm going to be getting a 10 knock faster. And that's kind of where I want to go with it. The other alternative would be to say, you know, what are all of my different skills? So we've got 10 moth, 9 lantern. Actually, there's a somewhat compelling argument that I should use this to boost Inks of Revelation so that I can get 10 lantern off of this. Especially because Inks of Revelation is helpful in other ways too. Resurgences and Emergences would allow me to boost the Grail. Desires and Dissolutions, unfortunately we don't have a Grail component there. So weaving and not working, again, that's our highest heart, and that's considerably lower than our lantern. And one way of sort of sorting through that would be to sort of take a look at what I've got on the shelf. So for instance, if I could find something that would push me over the edge with Rose, that would probably be the most tempting out of all of them. So a lot of these seem to be fairly high value items. But when I take a look at Rose, we're really coming up short. You know what, the more I think about that, let's... Okay, so Pearl and Tide is going to need... Not looking good. But Pearl and Tide is a Rose primary. Oh, but it needs Moon, so that's off the books. Path and Pilgrim, same story. Preliminal Meter. Knock primary. So I suppose there's an argument kind of the way that Door and Wall works. There's also something kind of nice about reading the Radical Measure with Preliminal Meter. Although I have a feeling that probably it will give me Preliminal Meter as a result. So yeah, this is... like, you can go absolutely mad trying to work out the best way to use your lessons. So there's an argument that says, okay, well, you know, I find a knock and a moth one so that I can keep consistent. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But like, you're really, at that point, you're really not getting an advantage out of it. You're just keeping it simple in your head. And there's actually I think that's a great reason to do things in Book of Hours. It already asks a lot of you. So just being able to keep it simple in your head is absolutely worth it in my view. Sacrament is kind of interesting because that was something that allowed us to make the Mazarine Fife, and being able to boost that sky. I think Quenchings and Quellings might be the other sky one for me. Actually, the more I look at this, the more I'm thinking Sacralamea is the ticket here. I'm making an executive decision, which also kind of sucks because I don't think the Stolen Secret will work in this case. Oh, that's fine. I didn't necessarily know I was going to use it that way. So let's make sure that we plan the day appropriately. So one thing I'm going to do is I am going to talk with Mr. Kill about the Faust. So I'm going to need to restore that anyway. We might as well make a bit of money while we're doing this. And I'm also thinking maybe we plunder the moor and the beach again. Now, I don't really need to do anything with the Arab, so I want to see what the weather is before I go too far today. Okay. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. Now, there's a possibility here with the fog that I want to use. And pluck the petals of the Lenten rose. Pretty, poisonous, no true rose. Okay, let's try and find places for these. I think I was filling up the cucurbit for a while, but... Alright. Now, that fog's thrown me for a loop. And the reason for that is... I think the Nocturnary is probably my best bet. So I take Trist. Here I have to use Edict's Marshal. So basically I'm looking to get the Wormwood Dream, so we can add the fog here. So now we need a shadow and we need a substance. I don't recall if the U-Blanc has moth. Looks like it doesn't. Oh, sorry, not moth, moon. Although the driftwood, I believe, does. So now we just need 2. And that's actually as easy as getting a memory. But I believe the old wound will suffice here. So why is this a big deal? Well, the Wormwood Dream is basically the way that I unlock a second glory. Potentially, it's also how I unlock other, mothy, or other moony stuff too. So I might want to take a minute and decide what that's worth. Now, unfortunately, if I'm going to be trying to go down the moon path, I probably should have been a little more reluctant to, throw my Trist into the sea. But this is a really good opportunity, right? Like the Wormwood Dream is very helpful. Normally that's a keeper level recipe, but because my Edict's Marshal is so low, I do have to wait for a good opportunity to use it. So my attentions are going to be divided for a little while. I am definitely going to... Well, okay, here's the funny thing. I don't need to really worry about boosting up Mr. Kill for the trip, right? That's something I can do anytime. But let's act like this is a priority. So I want the storm, so we're going to use the Swaddled Thunder in that case. So investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing it. A storm swathed in subtle threads, ready to be released with a few judicious snips. Okay, so that's basically Mr. Kill's... Actually, you know what? I didn't need to use the old wound. That would have been useful for the stolen secret. Oh well. Okay, so priority number 1 for the room has been taken care of. I'm going to need to get the winter back, and I'm going to need to get the Faust back. So I'm actually going to be a bit behind on getting certain books read, but again, I'm definitely committed to doing this today. So is there something I can be doing with my remaining elements of the soul? Probably working on boosting Sacrolamea. So we want Sky and we want Moth. Mind you, all of those are things that Mr. Kill may be giving me in conversation. So we are just going to sit on this for a little while. So what I may do with this stolen secret, if time permits, I might try and get myself my old wound back. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Coffin Maker's assistant, a tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. Make use of the Coffin Maker's help before dawn. So, first thing we're going to do is talk with him about Faust. Now, the reason for this, together we'll be watchful, boosts Lantern and Sky. I am going to need to renew an element of the soul. And the thing here is that while it's nice to be able to renew the Whist, the fact of the matter is the Wormwood Dream is persistent. So I can use that whenever I want, unless, Numa comes by. So in this case here, it might be better for me to focus on working the Opus Magnum Ceruleum, for the simple reason that I get to, I can just knock that off the list. I can get my Revelation, call it a day. In fact, one of the options that I have here would be to use Glimmerings, although I'm not really sure what I would do with the Winter on the other end. The thread parts, the weave is empty, the skies cry out. So there's the storm. We'll use that with Mr. Kill when we can. And I think I will read Glimmerings just because... Actually, you know what? I don't need to get fancy about this. We'll read Prophecies of Glory, or... Let's actually read... I'm interested in the Alloy of the White Rose. I think I'm going to read Letters to My Successor again. We'll use Fet for that one. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. My assistant and I are vigilant. So, let's load him up with what's required. So, talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. Mazarine Fife will be the last component, and then we just wind up talking with him, hoping that we get as many sky or moth elements as we can. Obviously, if I need a sky element, I can bring another storm back in, but that's kind of like killing a fly with an anvil. I figure there's better things we can do. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So I did create a little bit of a problem for myself just because I had the gardening that went a little too late at night, but we should be able to get through today with most of the things that I want to have done. Tubbins will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. Finally, our first use of the Mazarine Fife. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistants something to help, increasing their abilities. So, again, you might kind of accuse me of some dodgy accounting doing it this way, but all the time that we spent on pursuing that Mazarine Fife, what that's enabled for today is reading one, potentially two books, and unlocking a room, which is something that in previous sessions we would have been sort of seeing that as you can pick one of these options. So, sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Yew Black, a wood sacred to the Malachite, who is also called the Ring Yew, but also the tree that the dead pass in the dark. Now, I would like to, if I can, get some more driftwood fragments, because I'm not, I don't have an unlimited supply of those. And then for the glass, we're running out of space. Smooth as an egg, frosted like a winter window. Let us hope it is equally possible to forget this again. Wormwood Dream. If there are laws which apply only in Dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. So 6 moon, 6 winter, 3 edge. And letters to my successor, advice from Gervenius van Loren, 11th librarian of Hush House, to the one who will come after him. Some of the advice is practical. Don't worry about losing the house key, always close the seaward windows, make sure you feed the cockatoo. Much more of it is rarefied, especially about the inks of revelation, and some of it relates to Van Loren's own doom. When I was another, I made a foolish wager with the hooded princes to solve 7 riddles. I had not realized the riddles would be set by me for the one I would become. 6 are resolved, the 7th will be the end of me. It waits now in the cellar of the jail, where Collars still believes he can keep it confined, but the first riddle told me I would not see the second dawn. Okay. So we've got the first component that we need for reading Opus Magnum Ceruleum, but we are waiting on the Faust for 30 seconds. I suppose one question I have now is, what do I want to use my Elements of the Soul for? Do I feel confident in what Mr. Kill will give me, or do I want to start shoring up some memories for Edict's Liminal? One thing I will do, I'm just going to take a quick look here at Second Glory. So this would be one with Deep Mandaic. With that, we would probably use Quenchings and Quellings. So then that would get Wormwood Dream. That we can use any element of the soul that we want, and we're good. Okay. So usually when I look at something like this, I say maybe there's something more that we can do. So if we went for the secret colors instead, we would then use the Wormwood Dream. Sickle and Eclipse, really the best I got. All right, so we would be up to 10. 10 of 14. Actually, you know what the really fun thing about this is? If we had the fog, that would be a good opportunity for me to try it. But yeah, okay, so if we use Sickle and Eclipse, excuse me, 10 with that, 11 with the Tryst, 12 with the Globe, or 13 with the Catwink. It is frustrating how close that is to being fully formed. And then, of course, we can always take the risk with another round. In fact, because we have another Tryst, that's a gamble I should be willing to take. The more I think about it. So yeah, here's what I'm thinking. Maybe we save the Wormwood Dream so that we can read the secret colors instead. So we would use Sickle and Eclipse, Wormwood Dream, so 10 in total, 11 with the Soul, with the Tryst, 13 with the Catwink, and then what we have is a leftover Tryst to help us out, and then, you know, maybe I'll keep like a Stolen Secret in the background or something like that. Essentially just like a memory and an element of the soul, and between those two we should be able to get at least one more point. It's never guaranteed, right? Like I could get three weather. I think it is randomly selected, or like 3 of the random moods. There's no guarantees whenever it comes down to a random draw, but I think that's a risk that's worth taking. I'm not in like you can be cautious and then you can be sort of wasteful, and I do have a tendency to be wasteful on these sorts of things, but yeah, that's a risk that I feel is worth taking. All right, but what we're going to do with Mr. Kill right now, we still have half the day. We can let him unlock the room later. But what we're going to do here is we're going to talk with him to try and load up on as many memories to level up Edict's Liminal. So, Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. So just to reiterate, we are not using the Wormwood Dream because it's persistent. What we are going to do, though, is we are going to bring back the Faust, and we're going to use it to read the Big Blue Business. I really like that. Better now. So I have a bit of a dilemma in terms of what I do with the sweet bones at this point in the day, but let's focus on the task at hand. So I'm probably not going to be able to level up the skill that I get from this, but I think I'll get over it. So now we add the mirror scope, the wildering, and occasionally useful. So Ambrose Westcott used to render the title of this venerable and anonymous work mockingly as The Big Blue Business. A kinder translation would be The Great Work in Azure. And we'll start reading that, and as usual, we apparently hang on cliffhangers on this channel now. That's not entirely deliberate, but I'm also trying to be a little bit more disciplined in terms of the time that I wrap things up. But I do believe we have another episode for this week, Fridays, so I look forward to seeing what comes out of that book. I may not have run into this yet, which is always a little exciting. And yeah, we have another room to unlock, which is also fun. So lots of things ready to happen. And I'm happy because I did feel kind of bad about the way this week started, but it seems that we're actually making some pretty decent progress here. Anyways, I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.